Hey guys, what's up? It's me. About to do an analysis of Advocate Sipho Ramosepele's cross-examination of the Constable Mtetwa, um, who was the first respondent on the scene of the Senzo Meyiwa trial. Let's get to it.
As it pleases the court, my lord. Morning, Mr.Mtetwa.
Yes.
Now, the incident that you have testified about occurred some 9 years ago on the 26th of October 2014, correct?
Isehlakalo lesi-ke onikeza ubufakazi ngazo senzeka-ke iminyaka ewu-9 eyendlula ngeyi-26 ka-October 2014.
Yeah.
Yes.
And would you agree with me that through the passage of time, memory fades away?
Uzovumelana-ke nami uma ngithi-ke ngokuhamba kwesikhathi-ke indlela-ke yokukhumbula iyashabalala noma iyahamba noma isikhathi ukuthi umuntu uyakhohlwa-ke ngokuhamba kwesikhathi.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm saying this because I've listened to you during your evidence in chief. On several respects, you were unsure of what happened. Is that correct?
Ngikusho lokho-ke uma ngilaleleke wena-ke ubufakazi bakho ukuthi kukhona la ungasakhumbuli-ke khona noma unganasiqiniseko khona angithi.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in order for you to have been certain today here in court, the only Bible or your book that is the sergeants and lower ranking officers, it's the pocket book or what is called the SAP 206, correct?
Ongakusiza-ke wena-ke ukuthi-ke ezinye izinto uyikhumbuleke iloko enikubiza ngokuthi i-206 noma-ke i-pocket book.
Yeah.
Yes.
And on the night of the incident, did you have your pocket book with you?
Ngaleliya langa-ke lesehlakalo i-pocket book yakho wawunayo kuwena?
Yeah, but I got it.
Yes.
Now, when you received the dispatch from radio that there's an incident of a shooting incident at Mozamo section 13511 Kutano Street, you, per standing orders of the police, you then memorialized the time that you received that dispatch, correct?
Uma noma nkathi-ke senithola-ke umbiko loyo-ke kuyona-ke i-radio control ukuthi kunalokhu okwenzekile eMzamo section 13511 Kutwanong Street. Ngicabanga ukuthi-ke isikhathi leso-ke enathola ngaso loyo mbiko loyo isikhathi owasibhala phansi kuyona-ke i-pocket book.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in fact, everything that you do that night, your movement, your observations, the scene, the people that you talk to, you memorialize that in a pocket book so that it serves as a refresher when you come to testify in court like this, correct?
Konke-ke okwenzeka ngaleliya langa owakubona ukuhamba kwakho abantu owakhulumisana nabo konke lokho ukuze-ke uyikhumbuzeke noma ukukhumbuleke yini.
Before aphenduleke la, before he even answers, I must say that the advocate seems to have done their homework in as far as the process description of what to have happened, or rather what ought to have happened in the scene as the police were dispatched. For that, obviously, we need to bravo them, to clap our hands, so that when we criticize them, people can take our criticism objectively. I must take my head off this advocate in this line of questioning. This demonstrates that he has done his homework. Let us proceed.
Into leyo kufanele ukuthi uyibhale phansi kuyona i-pocket book.
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you know what happened to that pocket book of yours for the incident of the month of October 2014?
Ingabe uyazi yini ukuthi leyo pocket book ikuphi noma kwenzekani ngayo leyo yange-26 ka-October 2014?
Ithi mayisigcwele i-pocket book bese siyibuyisela kubo laphaya e-logistic.
Once the pocket book is full, we take it back to them at logistics.
Bese bona ke bekwazi ukuthi basinike enye.
So that they are able to give us another one.
Sake sazama ke ukuyowafuna ama pocketbook.
We then attempted to go and look for the pocketbooks.
Sangawathola.
We were unable to find them.
Base besibhalela istatement sathola nokuthi angazi after isikhathi esingakanani anoma u3 years noma u4 years bayawa destroyer lawo sabe sesikuthola nalokho.
Sorry. They then wrote us statements, and then the other thing that we established, I'm not certain as to whether is it 3 years or 4 years. They then destroy the pocketbooks, but yebo.
Esawatholayo ekhona laphaya kwakungowokuqala kuwa 2016.
But the ones that we were able to get or to find there were from the start of 2016.
Yona asiyitholanga.
But this specific one we couldn't find.
That's very interesting. It would be interesting to find out what is the standard procedure from SARS, from all the different departments, from SABS, from ESCOM, all the parastatals, including SABS and the military, in terms of keeping documents that are not classified or confidential, that are not classified. How long do they keep them? Because I know that classified documents get to be kept for excessive amounts of time, depending on the classification. But the point I'm trying to make here is this: when you're talking about murder, these sometimes are called cold cases. You get the impression that in other countries like the US and the UK, they literally keep this for much longer. I think the duration is about 25 years. So it's surprising that in our country they have a period less than 10 years to keep documents that are that critical to a case, a cold case. But nevertheless, it will be interesting to find out. I'll certainly find that out, and probably in a video in future that pertains to this very case, I'll give you guys that information.
Now, you received this dispatch from radio control. Did they there and then tell you the information about who the victim was?
Uma senithola lo mbiko ke ku radio control, ingaba basho yini ukuthi ubani ke lo muntu olimele?
Cha.
No.
Did they at dispatch there and then tell you about the number of suspects and then tell you about the number of suspects or suspects involved?
Ngabe basho yini ukuthi bangaki abantu abasolwa lapho?
Cha.
No.
Did you receive from dispatch information about the description of the alleged suspects?
Babachaza yini ukuthi ba abantu abakanjani laba abasolwayo?
Cha.
No.
Did you further also receive information about whether the suspects were still in the house or the suspects were in flight mode, were running away?
Ingame uma bekusho lokho bakusho yini ukuthi labantu laba ke noma basolo laba basesendlini noma ke sebehambile noma sebebalekile noma bayabaleka?
Cha.
No.
Wow, that is extremely dangerous condition within which our policemen and women are operating. Think about the questions that have just been asked. The police officers went into a scene where there was a shootout without knowing how many suspects were there. Were they all carrying firearms? Are they still there or have they fled? So they basically could have just walked in a crossfire and have been shot dead. Remember, they are not bulletproofs. Yeah, they are wearing bulletproof vests, but they are not themselves bulletproofs. So they could have walked in the line of fire and have been shot dead, basically. And I think these questions that the advocate is raising here are important because they also determine how many people you dispatch to the scene. Because if, for an example, you have gangsters of roundabout 50 to 100 who are shooting at each other, you can't just dispatch one buggy that has got two constables and 2 trainees, as it was the case here. So I appreciate his line of questioning. It unveils a lot of incorrect preparation and perhaps inadequate training of those who are sitting in the call center of SABS as when they receive that information. Because if you've ever watched any American movie or any English movie, you would observe, unfortunately I have to make reference to these, not because I'm fond of them, no, but simply because that's what is dominant in our television screens. So the point I'm trying to make though is this: if you watch any of their movies or series, you are going to see that when you call 911, there's basic information that they want. Who are you? Where are you right now? What are you doing? Who is the suspect? How many suspects are there? Is the victim still breathing? Is the victim still alive? Have there been any shots? What are you? So they are trying to get the understanding of the scene prior to dispatch. Now, in this case, seeing that the answer was no, it's clear these guys were dispatched into a scene that they knew nothing about. So basically, they have to find out in the scene, one, what exactly happened here? How many people were involved? Now, this explains why it takes so long in South Africa to resolve cold cases, to even mess up, as you potentially see that the advocates are alleging that they could have messed up and contaminated the scene without their knowledge. But let us proceed.
Now, if I understood your testimony correctly, is that the call from dispatch, you received it at around 20 hours 53, correct?
Uma ngikuzwe kahle ke ushilo ukuthi kwakuyimizuzu ewu7 phambi ko9 uma nithola loyo mbiko loyo.
Yeah.
Yes.
And from you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you were from the police station or were you out on the beat patrolling at the time you received?
Before he answers the question whether they were patrolling or they were at the police station at the time, it is important to note, put it as a mental note, that they received the call at 7 minutes to 9 p.m. That's when they were dispatched to the scene. This is going to come in very handy and is very important right throughout all cross-examination from this one and including Mshololo's one. When I do the analysis of the next advocates after this one, all of them, you are going to see how crucial this piece of evidence from the evidence in chief that and also this cross-examination, because this is a confirmation of what the witness has said in the evidence in chief. Let's proceed.
The dispatch call.
Kathi niwuthola umbiko loyo ke niwuthola umbiko nise police station noma niwuthola ningaphandle vele ni patroller?
Sase police station.
We at the police station.
And that is what you've just testified now about, that the distance between the police station and the crime scene at Kutlwano Street 13511 Mzamo section was plus minus 6 kilometers, correct?
Yiloko qeda ukusho ke manje ukuthi ke ibanga ke ukusuka police station ukuya khona lapho ke isigameko senzeka khona ke kuphakathi ku5 no6 kilometers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And approximately your best estimation, how long did it take you to arrive at Kutlwano Street, that scene, crime scene?
Ukusuka khona ke police station ngabe kwanithatha isikhathi esingakanani ke manje ucabanga noma uqagela ke ukusuka police station uyofika khona lapho isigameko senzeka khona kwanithatha isikhathi esingakanani?
Mhlambe ngathi u10 kuya ku12 minutes manga process.
Maybe 10 to 12 minutes if I'm not mistaken.
So this is the disservice that is now being done by those books missing. If those books were available, now we know the dispatch time and the book will tell us what time did they arrive on the scene. Can you see that? The books will be used as exhibits in court to say you were dispatched at 7 minutes to 9, you only arrived here at 9:30. Why did it take you so long? Or that kind of a thing, particularly when you know the difference is 6 kilometers. So if you are driving a 6 kilometer distance, you can't drive it for 10 minutes. Unless, you can, it just depends on the type of the road in which you are driving. And I'm saying this because predominantly the roads where I stay are highways. So basically, 6 kilometers is 3 minutes drive type of a thing. So it won't be 10 minutes. But when you have to go and stop and there are other cars and all that, it's indeed possible to drive 6 kilometers over a period of 10 minutes. It's not implausible. But those books that the advocate had initially asked about were quite critical in terms of them objectively assessing the assertions by the witness.
Okay.
And you are driving to that scene, correct me if I'm wrong, with your blue lights on and the siren on, or are you just driving normally to that scene?
Nanihambela nje noma nani-driver ke ngama-blue lights kanye ne-siren uma niya khona?
Asidrayiva ngawo ama-blue light.
We were driving with the blue lights.
Okay. And there's yourself, Sergeant Matebula, and the two student constables, correct?
Wena uMathebula kanye nama-students amabili.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, how did you find this scene? Was it easy to locate, or had to ask other people to direct you to the scene?
Kwakuwukuthi kulula ukuyithola le ndawo lena noma ke kwafanele ukuthi nibuziseke ukuze niyithole la isigameko esenzeka khona?
Hayi, istrati siyasazi le ndawo siyayazi, kwabe nje sekubheka i-house number.
We know we know the street. We also know the street, the place. So we just had to look for the house number.
And describe for us how the condition of the scene. Let's speak about not even in the house itself, outside the yard on the street. How was the condition like in terms of people being there?
Uma ungasitshela ngesimo ke singekakhulumi ke phakathi endlini ke estradini nje ngaphandle ke kwakukanjani ke ngokumayela nokuthi abantu babe khona kathi nifika?
Babe ngekho beningi. Umuntu engamnothisa nje lo mama wayeloku ekhomba ama-direction.
There were not many. The only person that I noticed was the lady that was pointing the directions out.
And when you arrived there outside the yard, did you notice any Honda Ballad motor vehicle?
Uma nifika laphayana ikhona yini imoto eyi-Honda Ballad owayibona?
Cha, anginakanga ngibonanga moto.
No, I didn't take note. I didn't see a car.
I think the question would have been better if it was posed this way. At arrival on the scene, did you observe any other motor vehicles that were parked nearby? Then once he had observed vehicles that were parked nearby, then you can ask him what was the name of the car. Did you observe the name of the car, the make and all that? But when you're saying, did you observe any Honda Ballad, that's a leading question. Once he says he didn't observe any vehicles, that cancels out the Honda Ballad as well. It goes without saying. Just me thinking out loud.
Now you stop outside the yard. This Themba Khumalo person, where did you meet him?
Uma senima ke ngaphandle ke uThemba Khumalo lona nahlangana kuphi nendawo naye?
Ube khona ngaphandle egate.
It was outside at the gate.
And you engage with Themba Khumalo, who tells you that he's got little knowledge of what had transpired, but that the people that have knowledge of what transpired are all at the hospital, and he mentions Makhumalo, correct?
wasenitshela ukuthi yena ke akukho nje okuningi ke akwaziyo kodwa ke abantu abanolwazi basesibhedlela wasechaza ke uma esho uMakhumalo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, there and then, did he tell you about who the victim was?
Ingabe wabe senitshela yini ukuthi ubani ke umuntu owalimala?
Cha.
No.
And if I understood your evidence correctly, is that since that you learned that there was a shooting scene, you then asked Themba Khumalo to open the house for you so that you can have a look, correct?
Nanjengoba nansenizwile ke ukuthi kwakudutshuliwe ke labo nasenimcela ke uThemba Khumalo loyo ukuthi anivuleleke endlini.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was the real objective of getting in the house, since you were informed that the victim has been transferred to hospital and everybody else that knows about what transpired is also at the hospital?
Manje ke kwakuyini ke inhloso yokungena ngaphakathi ke endlini nanjengoba nansenitsheliwe ke ukuthi lona olimele usehanjisiwe ke usesibhedlela futhi ke nalabo abanolwazi ukuthi yini eyenzeka abekho basesibhedlela kwakuyini ke inhloso yokuthi nifise noma nifuna ukungena ngaphakathi?
Sasifuna ukubona ukuthi phela mhlambe kwenzakale ngaphandle noma endlini, mhlambe endlini sizobona noma igazi onje okutshengisayo ukuthi kube nenkinga eyenzakale lapha yenzakale endlini noma ngaphandle.
We wanted to see whether it happened inside or outside or whether we gonna.
So basically, they wanted to ascertain where is the crime scene. That's basically what they wanted to ascertain. Because remember, they are arriving at the gate. They get there. There's Kelly Khumalo's uncle, that is Makhumalo's brother, who was carrying the key to the house, who presented himself as knowing absolutely nothing and simply told them that there was a what we call a shooting, and all the people with relevant knowledge have gone to the hospital. So now the police, in their quest to establish where is this crime scene, because remember now the person they are talking to knows nothing, he presents himself as such. So they then look around outside and then they go inside the house and then they don't see anything untoward, and then they go to the hospital to speak to the people that may be in the know. Okay, let's proceed.
Find anything or something, whether it is blood, as whether inside or outside.
Did you then first inspect outside to see whether the scene occurred outside the yard?
Ingabe nase nibheka ngaphandle ke ukubona ke ukuthi isigameko lesi senzeka ngaphakathi noma ngaphandle endlini?
Hayi ngoba ngaphandle yayingekho into eyayibonisa ukuthi khona okwenzakala ingakho sase singena endlini.
Because there was nothing that was an indicator that it happened outside. We then went into the house.
Now, in your 15-year experience as a police officer, you will know that as a first responder or the first officers to arrive at the scene, you've got certain responsibilities regarding that scene, correct?
That's a misleading question, because this officer, in his evidence in chief, indicated that he has been at the police force as of today, 2023, for 15 years, which then means 9 years ago, he was in the police force for 5 years. So the question that creates an impression, as a person who has been in the force for 15 years, you would know, needs to be clarified that at that time, I was so many years. Today, yes. And obviously, it becomes a hypothetical question if you're asking my knowledge of today to apply it retrospectively. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So the question is misleading in that sense, but I hope he clarifies when he answers.
15 ke esebenza ke emaphoyiseni uzokwazi ke ukuthi nanje ngabantu bokuqala ke abafika ke lapha yana ukunina ke ukuthini ukuthi ke noma ke nama responsibility eninawo ke ukuthi kunezinto ekufanele nizenzeke khona lapha ngithi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, tell me if you agree with me that the primary objective of a first responder first is to secure, make sure that everybody on the scene is safe, i.e., whether the victim is in the scene, and 2, whether there's medical attendance that is required for that person. That's the first priority, correct?
Okokuqala ke ukuqiniseka ke noma ukwenza isiqiniseko sokuthi ke wonke ke umuntu okhona ke lapho uvikelekile ke usafe nokuthi ke ivictim ke naye ke uyathola ke ukusizakala ke uma kuwukuthi kufanele ke athole usizo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then if that is not the case, as is in this case, where the victim has already been transported to hospital, so there's no medical emergency, the second priority then becomes securing the scene, correct?
Lana
The second, that indeed is correct, and I think, I trust that the witness will say correct. However, you don't secure an unidentified scene. So once again, the question is also a leading question that seeks to catch the witness. You get the point? Because firstly, they must identify the scene. They looked outside, they didn't see it as a place where possibly this could have taken place. They walked inside the house, they didn't see it as a place where this could have taken place, right? But observe how they ask their questions. Their questions are really, you could argue and say they are meant to unearth the truth, and someone else may argue and say no, they are meant to catch the witness. Someone else may argue and say they are meant to do both. But for me, I would appreciate it if they ask questions that are seeking to unearth the truth to help the court, rather than seeking to catch and discredit witnesses. Sure, there is a time for that, without a doubt, particularly when innocent people are going to fry for something that they didn't do.
nanjengoba sekutholakele ukuthi ke sasingekho isidingo saloko nanjengoba ke wayesehanjisiwe ke noma usesesibhedlele ke. Okwesibili ke manje ukwenza ke isiqiniseko sokuthi indawo lena ke isigameko esenzeke kuyona ke i-safe noma i-secure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you, that night, upon realizing that from Themba Khumalo that the victim is at hospital, everybody that knows about the scene is about the incident is at hospital, did you take any steps to secure that scene?
Uma senizwile ke ngoThemba Khumalo ukuthi ke lona olimele.
No, that's misleading. They have not identified the scene. So which scene were they supposed to secure? Observe his question is based on the fact that he is an advocate and he has an information of where the scene is, and he's assuming that the police at first arrival, first instance on the scene, they knew where the scene is without the information they received from Makumalo. That's misleading. I'll give you guys a simple example, right, which is not related to this case. Here is a bus stopping at a bus stop, and then a blind person climbs into the bus, right? And one of the occupants of the bus gives the blind person their seat. Is that correct? Remember, the person is blind, and one of the occupants of the bus gives their seat over to the blind person. Now, many people would say that's actually a generous thing to do, but the point is you need more information. It depends on who is giving their seat, which occupant is giving their seat to the blind person. Because in the example that I'm giving you, when I tell you that that was a driver, hence he was fired, you get the point? Now, the more information changes your paradigm as to how you look at the story that I'm telling you. So when the advocate is saying, did you secure the scene? He is speaking as though they had already identified the scene. No, it's very important to identify the sequence of events, how they have unfolded, because some of these questions can be misleading if you hear people saying, yeah, no, the advocate was red hot. There's nothing red hot about these questions, particularly if you've got a witness that is wide awake. They'll see right through it.
Usehanjisiwe kusesibhedlele bonke abantu abanolwazi ukuthi yini eyenzekile basesibhedlele, ingaba khona yini enakwenza ke ukuthi nisecure noma nivaleke isini leyo
esakwenza ukuthi siqale sithole umuntu onolwazi asichazele ukuthi kwenzakalani.
what we did was to first get hold of the person with the information to let us know or to inform us as to what happened.
So it was not necessary at that stage to secure or cordon off the scene.
Ngaleso sikhathi ke noma uthi ke ngaleso sikhathi leso sasingekho ke isidingo ke sokuthi nivale noma nisecure ke isini.
Sesiyazi ukuthi iyona iphi isini ngabe kungaphandle noma kusendlini or outside the yard mhlawumbe.
Because
There you go. There you go. The interpreter is going to interpret his own. That's why I'm intervening right now. Because I understand and I speak the language. The point is, he is now asking the advocate, you are saying that we didn't cordon off the scene. Is it that because you are assuming that we already knew where the scene was? That's basically, in a nutshell, what he is saying. Now let's hear the interpreter. And this is very important because he says, sesiyazi ukuthi yiphi isin, right? Let's hear him out. Let's hear him responding.
leso sasingekho ke isidingo ke sokuthi nivale noma nisecure ke isini.
Sesiyazi ukuthi iyona iphi isini ngabe kungaphandle noma kusendlini or outside the yard mhlawumbe.
There you go. 100%. He's spot on there because he can see through the trick that the advocate is literally trying to send him on a wild goose chase. He's trying to make a moron out of him, right? Let's continue.
Because we knew already as to which was the scene. Was it now outside the yard, inside the house?
Did you hear the interpreter said, because we knew already? No, because we didn't know already or at the time which was the scene. Was it inside? Was it outside? That's a correct interpretation of that. But nevertheless, they do make quite a lot of mistakes.
Let's move on, Mr. Mtetwa. Now,
so now he was caught with his pants around his ankles. He says, let's move on, Mr. Mtetwa. I love it when they do that. So Mr. Mtetwa is fully awake and he saw right through his ploy. And now he says, let's move on, Mr. Mtetwa. Instead of entertaining the fact that, because this is the truth. If we are seeking the truth, you have to face that reality head on, that the witness is telling you, we have not yet identified the scene at this particular moment. This assists the court and also save a lot of time because you find a lot of the following other advocates are going to ask the same question, which to me is bordering on unprofessionalism. But nevertheless, let's hear his next question.
you say we entered the house. Themba Khumalo opened for us. Who is the we?
Ube sowuthi ke sasesingena ke endlini uThemba Khumalo wasivumela uma uthi sa usho obani?
Ngisho mina noMathebula.
Myself and Mathebula.
And the student constables,
Ama student wona?
Nawayekhona.
They were also there.
did they also enter the house?
Nabo bangena.
Babemngaphandle.
They were standing outside.
Now, as you enter, you say your immediate sight is drawn to a head and a crutch. Is that what I understood your evidence to be?
Ngikuzwe kahle ke uthi unathi nje uma ningena wasubona isigqoko ke kanye necrutch lo.
Yeah.
Yes.
And did that inform you that the incident occurred in the house at that stage?
Ingabe lokho kwase kunitshela ke yini ukuthi lokho kwenzeka phakathi endlini?
Cha.
No.
I love his answer here. No. Why? Okay, just think about what the advocate is asking the man. Since when did isigqoko, a head, and a crutch, since when were they evidence of a crime? Think about it. Remember, he asked this gentleman the information that was given to him when he was being dispatched. It was never said there that there were so many people and what was happening inside the house, and some of them were using a crash to hit one of the suspects who was wearing his cloak. None of that information was given. So how are you supposed to see a head and a crash or a crash, and then suddenly you think, voila, a crime has taken place here? So what am I trying to say to you? Once again, this is not a very good question at all. It's a question that presupposes a lot of information to get to that question in the first place. You need to take the witness there if there's anything that you think you can prove. Otherwise, you simply say, I have no further questions for this witness, and you allow the process to continue to move forward. Let's continue.
And you then proceed and enter the sitting room, dining room area, correct?
Nase ningena-ke niyakhona-ke e-dining room.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you testify that you saw a couple of alcohol cans somewhere in that area, correct?
Nase nibona-ke la makana amabili-ke otshwala.
Yeah.
Yes.
At any stage now, you've entered through the kitchen, you've seen the dining room, and you've got a general feel and idea of observation of that house, what you have seen. Did it then inform you that the incident occurred within that house?
Ningenile kitchen, sibonile isigqoko, nibonile crash, ningena-ke manje dining room, nibona-ke lokho nikubonayo amakano otshwala. Ingabe manje-ke lokho-ke sekunitshela yini ukuthi isigameko lo sisenzeke ngaphakathi endlini?
My lord, I see it's the time of the mid-morning adjournment.
Okay, let's adjourn for 15 minutes.
The podium, my lord.
I see.
Thank you, my lord. Mr. Twala, just to be fair to you, sorry, Mr. Mtetwa, these names tend to be playing on my tongue. Just before we took a short adjournment, I asked you a question that you never responded to because I abruptly cut you off. The question was that the exhibits or the items that you observed there in the kitchen and in the dining room, the head, the crutch, and the cans of alcohol in the dining room, did it then and then inform you that there's an incident that occurred in the house?
Manje-ke bengisakuzwe ngaphambilini ukuthi konke lokho wakubona, isiqhoko, ikrachi, amakano otshwala, ukuthi lokho-ke kwase kukutshela-ke manje noma kuse kuba yinkomba-ke kwena ukuthi kunesahlakalo esenzeka phakathi endlini.
Cha kimi kwakungena komba.
No, to me it was not an indication.
I would have been very surprised if his answer was yes. Because in which universe do you enter into a location's house? You see a crash, you see a head, you see 2 cans of beer that are empty on the table, and you think that there was a crime committed here. In which universe? That doesn't make sense at all. So I really would have been shocked if he said that. Once again, this is like what they call fishing. This advocate is fishing here. Okay? He's looking for something he's not going to find. He's wasting the time of the court, basically. Because if you don't have questions, don't ask the questions. He started very well, without a doubt. But this line of questioning, in my view, is not going to lead to anywhere. Because they make a lot of inferences, which in my view, well, I guess one would argue and say, no, they are being genuine. They are not being disingenuous in their questions. But sometimes I ask myself a lot of questions because remember, law is not science, right? It's about logic, and other things do not follow. For an example, if there was this scenario that was described where Kelly's uncle is standing there and he said what he said, and he didn't tell them that there was a shooting that took place inside the house, they had no way of knowing that the shooting took place inside the house or outside the house, except when they walked into the house, they saw a pool of blood. That's a different matter altogether. They are not idiots. They would have said, okay, clearly the scene of the incident is here, but there was no pool of blood there. From all the witnesses, they said you could simply see drops, like small drops of blood, right? Which therefore means when a person comes in for the first time, they may not readily observe that, which is exactly the case with the 2 policemen that went in. And for that, you can't blame them. But when they were given, remember my example of the blind man that comes on board on the bus and one of the occupants gives him his seat. Remember that example. When the policemen were given more information by Makumalo, suddenly they were able to see things on the scene that they couldn't see initially. Why? Because now they know that this is actually the scene of the occurrence. This happens to everybody. Okay, I can give you so many examples. When your eyes are open to certain things, say, oh wow, now that you have removed the veil, now that I know that there was a driver that gave the blind man his seat, I know how wrong that would be. I mean, a blind man can't be driving a bus, it's gonna kill everybody inside the bus, kind of a thing. You understand? So now that we know the scene of the incident was inside the house, suddenly they start seeing things. Oh wow, look at that, look at that. Exactly. It's human nature. It's not impossible at all. For me, thus far, this witness seems legit and he sounds as though he's telling the truth hitherto. I'm not saying he's not gonna lie somewhere. We'll talk about it when we get to it.
Okay, now before you went to hospital and instructed Mr. Themba Khumalo to lock the house up, did you take any steps to secure the evidence that you saw in the kitchen and in the dining room?
Ngaphambili kokuthi ke ubusucela ke yena.
This one I'm gonna go before him. Evidence of what? How does 2 cans of beer, a crash and a head in someone else's house, where you have not been told that a crime has taken place over here, how does that become evidence? Evidence of what? Why didn't they secure the bedroom and the beds and the clothes? I mean, it really doesn't make sense, some of the questions these guys are asking, save that they know something that they are trying to preempt from a witness. But what they are supposed to do, according to case law, as I understand it, I'm a layman in law, but I do read quite a lot of cases. And as I understand it, and in fact, somewhere in this cross-examination, but not for this advocate, the next one that I will be doing, the judge literally makes a reference to that it's very important for the advocates or counselors, when they cross-examine, to have looked at the chief evidence of the witnesses and look at it holistically and not look at it in silos and take extracts of what suits them out of context and come and ask questions. These questions, what I perceive here, are questions that are being asked out of context of the testimony given by the witness. So therefore you are trying to catch the witness. Can you see that?
Ubaba Khumalo ukuthi aphinde avaleke, ngaba khona yini enakuzama ke noma enakwenza ukuthi nje ni secure ke lobo bufakazi lobo enabona lapho phakathi endlini?
Mayisho ubufakazi usho ama crashes nesigqoko.
Referring to the crutch as well as the head
And the beer cans.
namakani?
Cha.
No.
Now, you go to hospital.
This policeman must be asking himself, did these guys go to school and spend so many years to learn what this guy is asking me right now? Where did I speak about the scene of the incident? Nobody here knows the scene of the incident. So how am I going to go cordoning off areas that are not this for me? I found it that one, the advocate was really, it's okay in a court of law to stand up and say, I have no questions for this witness. He started very well, I'm not going to lie to you, when he spoke about the book that is their Bible, where they're supposed to record everything and so on and so forth. But from there, to me, it was just downward spiral. But let's continue. Let's be reasonable.
And you learn of the demise of the deceased, correct?
Naseniya khona ke esibhedlele ila enasenitshela khona ke ukuthi cha ke akasekho noma lona olime ebekade limele akasekho emhlabeni.
Yeah.
Yes.
How long were you at the hospital before you then returned back to the scene at 13511 Kutlano Street?
Kwaba isikhathi esingakanani nisesibhedlele ngaphambili kokuthi niphinde futhi nibuyele khona eKutlano Street?
Noma ngingasasikhumbula isikhathi kodwa asihlalanga esibhedlela futhi ngaphambi kokuba sesibona ikwenzakalana sabe sesiphuthuma.
Although I'm not certain about the time, but we didn't stay long at the hospital, and also after having seen as to what was happening, we then rushed.
And your testimony is that you returned from hospital with Makhumalo, who and Ruth explains to you what had transpired in the house, correct?
Nase nibuyela ke khona ke endlini nihamba naye ke uMakhumalo nanjengoba ushilo ukuthi njengoba nihamba njena ke enichazela ke ukuthi kwenzekani.
Yeah.
Yes.
And did you return with Makhumalo and any person else that you did not arrive with at the hospital?
Uma senibuyela khona ke endlini nibuyela noMakhumalo nomunye umuntu omunye noma kwakuMakhumalo yedwa noma kwakukhona nomunye futhi?
AwuMakhumalo.
Only Makhumalo.
The reason I'm asking you this is that there's a lady that testified in this matter, Miss Mokete, who testified that she and Makhumalo traveled with the police back to the scene from hospital. What's your comment on that?
Imbangela ukuthi ngikubuze loyo mbuzo ke ngoba ke kuno CC ke obe ufakazi lana ke uNthabiseni Mokete yena ke kubufakazi bakhe othe wayehamba noMakhumalo ke behamba namaphoyisa uma bebuya esibhedlele bebuya la khona endlini. I don't know her. I was only traveling with Makhumalo.
Now you testified that
Obviously, the officer was not drunk. He was on duty. So he clearly is telling the truth when he says that he traveled with Makhumalo. And by the way, his partner is going to testify as well. And then there's other two trainees who could also testify to the same thing. But nevertheless, for me, that's neither here nor there. What is important is that as they were traveling back, Makhumalo now lifted the veil. Now they began to now understand that those things that they saw were part of the crime scene. For the first time now, their eyes are opening up as Makhumalo is speaking to them. This, remember, they were called at 7 minutes before 9. They got on the scene, according to his testimony, 10 minutes to 12 minutes later, which means 7 minutes after 9 to easily 9 minutes after 9, right? 2100. So now they are coming from the hospital with Makhumalo. Probably now the time is roundabout, after they had done all of this, is round about 9:30. What is the point I'm making to this? You are going to see in a different testimony when he's being cross-examined by Mshololo. That is why I'm giving you these times right now, so that they are fresh in your mind. Then you can see that his testimony is very consistent across the board. So for the first time now, round about 9:30, it's beginning to come together in his head. Oh, so that's a crime scene. Aha, right? Was the crime scene cleaned? Yeah, sure, it was cleaned. We learned that on a different testimony, not on this testimony. But it was not cleaned at the time they were going to the hospital. But we'll get to that. Let me not put the bus, or rather the cart before the horse. The horses must go first and then the cart. Let's continue.
Upon arrival at the scene, there's now lots of people outside in the yard and in the street in that vicinity of the scene, correct?
Ushilo ukuthi uma senibuya ke esibhedlele manje senibuyela khona endlini ke nathola sekunabantu abaningi ke egcekeni estradeni khona lapho nje kwisini leyo.
Ababengekho endlini abantu babese emgwaqeni.
No, the people were not in the yard, they were in the street.
Okay. And you make further observations on the scene, for example, the damage to the kitchen door on your return, correct?
Uma senibuya ke okunye futhi owakubona ke noma wabe usubona ukuthi nomnyango ke ulimele nawo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, just to track back a bit, at the hospital, you also testified that you spoke a bit to Makhumalo, correct?
Okunye futhi uma singabuyela nje emuva ke ushilo ukuthi nasesibhedlele ke wakhuluma nje kancane noMakhumalo.
Yebo, ngoba sasibuza ukuthi ubani uMakhumalo waseyazi ke eseyichaza ke ukuthi ayuyithi.
Yes, because we were inquiring as to who Makhumalo was. She then came to us saying that she was Makhumalo.
Now, as you go back with her, that is Makhumalo, what she relates to you, did you then note it in your pocketbook?
Nanjengoba senibuya-ke manje esibhedlela nibuyela khona-ke endlini nihamba nayo umakhumalo lokhu awayenitshela kona ngaba okubhala noma nanikubhala noma okubhala phansi kwinote.
Okay, now you have ascertained that this pocketbook is lost, right? You've ascertained that. Okay. Why are you still asking about it? How is that going to help the court? Whether he says yes or no, how will you verify? You know the pocketbook is lost. So why are you asking, did you write your conversation with Makhumalo in the book? A book which you have already ascertained has been destroyed. Do you see the poverty here, guys? We need to do better than this. Really, if I'm a lay person and I see so much holes, no wonder the judge seated there is fed up. He's probably asking himself as well, what manner of training are these people being? What is happening at what we call at law school nowadays? Nevertheless, let's proceed.
Yes, sasikubhala okunye lokho esasikubona ukuthi kubalulekile.
Yes, we would write the other stuff that we consider to be of importance.
But either way, he has no way to verify the veracity of your claims. So why ask such a question in court? It's more like hearsay type of an evidence, okay? Because he can't vouch for what he's asking you right now.
Now, again, before you let's clarify that. Did you go to the direction of the park in Kutlwanong to look for the suspects before you first entered the Makhumalo residence or thereafter?
It's clear what he said. He said they came closer to the house and they saw this woman pointing at that direction and they went to investigate near the park. And then once they could not find anything, then they went to the house and met Kelly's uncle. It's clear what he said, and I don't believe you have forgotten, but I do believe that you are trying to catch the witness. And these things are silly. It must be that firstly, if this witness had such memory lapses, he wouldn't be in the police force. I guess you are banking on the fact that he may be lying, and therefore liars will not be consistent in their evidence.
Ushilo-ke ukuthi nathi uma nifika lapha yankathi nifika okokuqala kunalo muntu-ke owayenikhomba-ke ethi babaleke baye ngasepark. Ngabe uma ngabe senilandela-ke niyobheka epark nikwenze lokho ngaphambi kokuthi ningene phakathi endlini noma nikwenze uma seniphuma endlini?
Ngaphambi kokuba singene endlini.
It was before we entered the house.
And what did you specifically do at the park? Did you just drive around the park? Did you get off the car to look into the park? What exactly did you do?
Nafika nenzani epark ngabe nje nanidriver nje nijikeleze khona epark noma namisa imoto nasenehle emotweni nabheka yini nafika nayenze epark?
Asa driver nje sakhanyisa ama lights ajini.
We just drove applied the lights and then we turned back.
And now, at the scene, the first time when you get Mr. Khumalo Themba to open for you and have a walk through the scene, were you dressed in appropriate protective clothing to prevent cross-contamination?
No, but pardon me. This is silly. These advocates watch too much television, right? Where have you seen that happening? I have seen so many instances of people that have been shot at. When SABC is deployed there, they cordon off the scene after they've identified it. And then the forensic guys will come in, right? So he's now literally asking a question to a witness he's not supposed to be asking it to. This witness's job is to identify the scene and then cordon it off according to his evidence in chief. So the cross-examination must be based on the evidence in chief. He's now asking this witness, whom he knows based on the evidence in chief is not a forensic expert or practitioner. I know this because I listened to the evidence in chief. It was led by Baloyi, Advocate Baloyi, the prosecutor, or rather of the state, on behalf of the state. So how is it that he's asking this question to this witness? Because he knows this is not a forensic person. This is a constable. This is a first responder. First responders on the scene are not forensics, because they must first assess what is required on the scene. Then they will call the necessary expertise. But nevertheless, let's continue.
Fika laphayana nivulelwa uyena ke uMr Khumalo okokuqala laphayana nani igqoke ke impahla ekuyizona ke noma ke lokho okunivumelayo ukuthi kungabi khona nokuphazamiseka ke noma icontamination ekhona. Ngabe izinto nani igqokile noma nani ifakile ukuthi ningaphazamisi noma ngabe ukuphazamiseka kobufakazi. Usebenzisa le gama lokucontaminate ke.
Ugqoke impahla zamaphoyisa.
We're wearing police uniform.
What I'm trying to get at from you is that you are not wearing the forensic clothes, the overalls, the booties, the gloves that the forensic people normally wear on crime scenes, correct?
Ngikhuluma kulezi ke ama-forensic lezi abavamise ukuthi bayifake ke uma kunamasini ke ama-gloves, ama-booty, ama-overall. No.
Now, lastly, just to clarify something on the pocketbook that you say it was destroyed, apparently from the knowledge that you got at the station, that they are generally destroyed after 3 years, correct?
No, he didn't say 3 years. I don't like this line of questioning. I don't think it serves justice, to be honest with you, because people's cognition is not the same. People's ability to assimilate knowledge is not the same. And indeed, he was right when he said, after 9 years, people have become forgetful. But this manner of question is not, for me, is disingenuous, because you ask a person to give their best estimate, and based on the best estimate, for me, that's extremely unscientific. That someone is going to be sent to jail based on a best estimate. I mean, really? So you ask a person to give you their best estimate, or you ask them to give you the reason why these books were destroyed, and he says they told us that firstly this gentleman did not even know that such books normally gets to be destroyed. Hence they went looking for them. And so when they were told that no, we keep them for so long, what you simply need here is to summons the books if necessary. The standard operation procedure that will tell you guys, and by the way, this is just for me as far as I'm concerned, part of the basic homework that you advocates ought to have done, because this is information that you should have armed yourself with, to say, but according to the basic procedure manual, this information is supposed to be kept for this long. How come it was destroyed within this period of time? But to make all these suppositions, it doesn't serve justice at all. I'm sorry. It's just for me, for show. For people to appear smart when the truth is far from it, right? Because the gentleman they said 3 to 4 years, but that was an estimation. It could be the truth as written in black and white, could be 7 years, could be 10 years. But what he had is what he had, right? And he probably wasn't paying attention because he went there looking for his book. And that's what was important to him. The moment he was told the book was destroyed, what naturally happens to many people, they suddenly switch off. So whatever else you are explaining is not going to bring the book back. This is an attitude of many people. I've worked with various individuals. So you find that the person is switched off. They're no longer interested because they are put off by the fact that you are telling them that their work, all the work that they've put in there has now been destroyed. And they didn't even know that such work would be destroyed. But nevertheless, that's just my understanding of how the world works. The world doesn't work like, give me your best estimation, and therefore you're going to find someone else guilty based on the best estimation. You now ask that best estimation, you ask a question based on that best estimation as though it's a scientific evidence. No, 1,000 times no.
Awunasiqiniseko sokuthi u3 noma u4 years kodwa bashilo nje ukuthi phakathi ko3 no4 years bayawa destroy ama pocketbook.
Yeah.
When did you go to look for this pocketbook in particular? Which year did you go to look for this pocketbook?
Kwakunini uma niya ke niyawabheka lama pocketbook? Niye ngawuphi unyaka ukuyowabheka?
uphelile.
Last year.
Khathi sila ecourt.
It was when we were here in court.
So that will be 2022.
Yes.
And you testify that you only managed to get pocket books for 2016, correct?
Ishilo kunathola ayetholakala ilawa aseqaleni ka-2016. Yes.
If I may ask you this, after 2016 to date, to 2022, 5 years had elapsed roughly. Why was this pocketbook, in your knowledge, also not destroyed, the 2016 one that you found, if they are destroyed every 3 years or 4 years?
Uma kuwukuthi njengoba ngaphambilini ushilo ukuthi awazi noma u3 noma u4 years yini la adestroy khona. Manje ke uma uye last year wase uthola ke aka 2016 ingabe uyazi yini ukuthi kwakungani le yona ka 2016 ngoba seku 5 years ke ukuthi lona why lenga destroywanga?
Ngazofe ngimbuze le logistic.
I don't know. I'll ask on your behalf when I get to logistics.
Uyakunceda. Because really, what manner of a question is that? How is he supposed to know? And you were supposed to base this question on your own investigation of what is they have SOP, standard operating procedure. You are supposed to base it on that. And in this case, unless you have a strong reason to suspect, but in this case, in my view, you have not done your homework in this regard. I think I clapped my hands for you a little bit earlier when you appeared to have a knowledge of where they were supposed to record what and so on and so forth. But the fact that you didn't go further to know how long are these supposed to be kept in safe custody and how are they kept, are they archived, where are they archived, when do they get to be destroyed and so on and so forth. The fact that you didn't know that information, which is basically preliminary information that you do when you are doing, in my line of work, in the preliminary survey, when we are planning, basically, that's when we unearth all of that information that we are going to utilize. And in this case, that is lacking. And for me, it's shocking. Let's continue.
As the court pleases, my lord. Those are my questions for the witness. No further questions.
Yes, Mr. Meyiwa.
Yeah, so now he's going to go to the next advocate to ask questions. But basically, that is the my analysis, as you've heard, that it seems to me that our law practitioners require to be trained. This is poverty. He wasted a lot of time of the court asking questions that will not help the court get to where to the truth that the court needs, right? You know that the document is destroyed, but you're still asking whether did you record anything in it, but you're not going to have access to that record. So what's the point of your question? You get the point? And then you ask, why didn't you cordon off the scene? But wait a minute, there was no scene identified. So why are you asking questions like those, right? For me, that doesn't make sense at all. I believe in facts, and facts will lead to the truth, will unearth the truth, but this is not how you unearth the truth. And it is okay to say, let me show you what Mr. Mnis is going to say. Then we'll do a separate video for the others.
Is it please the court, my lord? I've got no question to you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you hear that? Mr. Mnisi said, as it pleases the court, my lord, I've got no questions for this witness. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with it than wasting the time of the court as we have seen it being done over here right now. Okay, you guys, that's my analysis. It's a layman's analysis, but if you read and you self-teach yourself in logic and you read law books, this thing is not beyond you. I read quite a lot of cases. I have litigated against okay, maybe that is too much information I shouldn't give, but I have litigated in the past and I have been successful, and I've literally built my own case from ground up, right? As a matter of fact, without what I did, there's no way that the case could have been won. Now, of course, the point, but still I'm a layman because I'm not a law practitioner. However, because this is not a scientific endeavor, anybody who likes reading can get their head around it. Okay, you can easily get your head around it, and you can see when a lawyer is good. You can see when there is poverty of knowledge. That's what I just saw right now. Poverty being demonstrated. I'm talking about technical training. It's clear to me that there's a lot of technical training that is missing here. Your questions should be precise, they should be informed, they should be factual, they should assist the court in determining the truth. And not just waste the time of the court, as he just did. My view is that he wasted a lot of the time of the court. When he began, he was guns blazing. Probably his cross-examination should at the very most lasted for 10 minutes. Not for as long as it did. But nevertheless, that's my rant for this one. You like the video, subscribe, share the video with as many people as possible. And I'll see you in the next video, which I think will be Mshololo's cross-examination.